Hi, my name's Sabrina and this is my husband, Derek. A handful of years ago, I was pregnant with our first child and everything was going perfectly fine until we went to our 19-week anatomy scan. It was then that we got a scary phone call afterwards from our midwife saying that things did not look good. Our baby was growing 2 to 3 weeks behind and I basically had no amniotic fluid. At that point, they didn't really know what was going on, but they sent me to a specialist, a high-risk specialist, who then also said she really didn't know what was going on. She told us that she hadn't seen those two things together, but that she would try to do some things, give me some tips on how I could get some more amniotic fluid and come back in a week and see if things changed and we'd go from there. So I went home, did those things, came back in a week, and she said, no changes. I'm sorry, you're either going to have to abort your baby and start over for a healthy child, which was not an option for us at all. Our baby had a beating strong heartbeat and we were not gonna give up hope. And then she said, or you can just continue on with this pregnancy and hope for the best. Maybe once you deliver the baby, he'll live for a little while and that will be about it.
Yeah.
And we were obviously completely shocked and devastated by the news. After we kind of got over the shock of it, we just declared that we were going to go through this journey, we were going to go through this adventure per se, and we were going to fight for life, and we were going to fight and believe that God would come through and give us a miracle. At 23 weeks, I went to the restroom and I noticed that a bunch more fluid was coming out. And I said, oh shoot. And we started praying and we drove to the emergency room, and it was at that point, I don't know why it took so many weeks, but they finally did a test and they determined that my water had ruptured. Looking back now, it was determined that my water broke around 17 weeks, and that's why there was such low fluid around 19 weeks. I was actually on hospital bed rest for 7 weeks. That was fun.
It was kind of a gradual thing, right? We had the pregnancy, we did the fun stuff, we did a gender reveal party, and then like a week after that, I think it was then we got the news that things were not good. There was a ton of emotion and a ton of shock of just leaning into each other and grabbing hold of each other in that time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like phase 1 of this journey for us.
Right.
And it was hard, but it was really, thankfully at that point, we didn't have any other children. So we just kind of went all in together, and I lived there too. I didn't sleep at home once. I stayed in the hospital.
Yeah, he stayed with me every single night on a cot.
Yeah, we just waited. That's what we were doing for that time.
Yep, we played it day by day. The doctor said that once I was admitted that I was only going to probably be there a week before I had the baby. They said, for sure, you're gonna go into labor sometime within the next week. Yeah, like probably within the first 24 hours, but for sure within the first week. So we are pretty, I don't know if you want to say naive, but just our faith was super high. And we're like, no, we're not going to go into labor and nothing bad's going to happen. This baby's going to survive. We're going to get through this. So every single day, the doctor would just come in and say, any changes? And it was like, nope, no changes, fetal movement, yep, good. And our goal was to get to 34 weeks pregnant. Sometimes it would be like, okay, things are going really, really awesome. We're going to make it to 34 weeks. And then the next day it's like, oh no, like we're on fetal monitoring for 4 hours because his heart rate's dipping and we might have to go in an emergency C-section. It was just like this while we were in there. Woke up in the morning for our normal ultrasound. We went in and he completely funked his BPP, or his biophysical profile. Wasn't practicing breathing, wasn't moving. The amniotic fluid was like completely gone. After a little bit, the doctor was like, hey, this is gonna be your baby's birth date. And I'm like, no, like still being very naive about it. Like, we're supposed to be making it to 34 weeks.
You weren't really naive. We just decided that we were gonna go and we're gonna make it. Like, we didn't allow anything.
I was naive in the moment when they said that he was gonna come. I'm like, no, I think he's just sleeping.
Yeah.
Which was silly. But anyway, so we went in for that emergency C-section. It was a whirlwind, happened very, very fast. So he came out. They immediately whisked him over to, the NICU table, intubated him. I didn't get to see him or anything like that, whisked him away.
It was kind of surreal because I wasn't in the room until like minutes before they forgot about me, which just shows kind of how urgent it was at the time. And I'm just waiting like, what's going on? But then I went with her, with our son to the NICU, and I just followed the nurses and just kind of watched them do their thing. we knew we were going to end up going in there, but we never really looked at it. We didn't tour it, which we could have done. We didn't really ask any questions about it. So I was just kind of along for the ride and watch them do their thing. And then it was like, okay, here's where he is now, and you can go. And so I'm like, okay. So I went back to her. The doctor came in and said his lungs look great. He gave us a lot of hope. It was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be a while. He was a little too positive, saying, oh, like 6 or 7 weeks. And we're like,
well,
really?
Said, I think he should be able to come home by his due date, which was around middle of July.
Yeah.
And that point, it was May 9th was.
Take that with a grain of salt. Don't commit to that date.
Yeah, so the NICU was definitely a way bigger whirlwind than it was on bed rest. I remember thinking when we were in the NICU, can we go back to the bed rest days?
It was easy looking back.
Even though I look back at pictures and I think about it in videos, and I would cry every day on bed rest, just so overwhelmed and just, I don't know, stressed out in some ways, but just so overwhelmed with being stuck in the hospital bed. Like most people say, it's normally 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
And you, as a Christian and as a person of faith, you want to not really believe that or declare that, but honestly, it's just true. It just happens, and it doesn't mean that you have lack of faith or that you're not, declaring good things over your baby, or you're not a good enough Christian or something. It's the science of it. Your baby was supposed to be in the womb longer. There's
a week that you have, basically, they call the honeymoon phase, and you don't hear it necessarily when you're in there. So we're like, things are great. This is not going to be a problem. Like, we're just going to cruise along. And like literally 7 days in, he starts to have issues, and it's just a little body that shouldn't be outside of the womb yet that has to fight and get stronger. I don't know, maybe it had been 3 or 4 weeks in there, and you're getting to hold your kid on a typically daily basis. Sometimes early on there's points where you can't, there's medical reasons, or maybe they have some jaundice showing and they have to be under the blue light for that. But if you think about, he was 2 pounds at birth, just over 2 pounds. So their little airway, as they described it to us, it's the size of like a pencil. So it's very tiny, and they have virtually no muscle development, right? It's very minimal. And so all it takes is a little bit of turn, and boom, airways closed by their own selves. And so you have to be like, they're durable, but they're not at the same time. And so one time he just got a little off, and he started turning blue. All there's monitors in the room that are going all the time. You get used to it, but the ones that are bad, and it's going off. The nurse comes running in, and she kept her calm really well. And I was calm in the moment. And she got him, and then this had kind of happened before to a degree, but nothing real severe. And then she actually had to intervene and kind of work on his body to stimulate him to come out of it. It was really rough to watch that happen, and honestly, it scarred me pretty bad for a while. He's taken from me. She resuscitates him, and he's okay, but then it's done. I can't hold my kid because he needs to be placed secure. Yeah, it was too much. And so that was really hard. You need to be strong, yes, in your faith, but you need to allow yourself to feel the things that you should feel, because it changes you to see your kid. Really, in my mind, he almost he would have, without intervention, he would have died right then. And you gotta kind of grieve that and take that pain and allow it to hit you. Because if you don't, it will come out, and it'll come out in bad ways. It's good to let it hit you, and let you yourself feel it. Don't go on a negative path of thinking everything is bad and that's going to be terrible. But let yourself feel that necessary pain.
Yeah,
it's part of the process. Yeah, instead of bottling it up.
Major mistakes I think we made when we were in the NICU is that, because we did have the option and we didn't have other kids, and we had the ability to stay with our kid a lot. We were basically at the hospital for 16 hours a day, 14 hours a day. And that was just our life for 3 months. He was in the NICU for 97 days, and we had nurses and doctors telling us, go and have a date night, go and do this. And I just could not bring myself to go and do anything without thinking like, what if I'm doing something and something happens to him and I'm over here like at the movies or at dinner or something. But the thing is that the chances of that happening are very slim, and they have your number. They're going to be able to call you and get a hold of you. But it is so vitally important, like just for your mental health and even just for your faith, to like take the burden off you a little bit.
Yep.
Go get a meal in public instead of in the cafeteria at the hospital. And don't isolate yourself so much. Like, they have your kid, they're taking care of your kid. If you don't have the option to be there a lot, they have helpers that come in and they do kangaroo care with your baby. And I would just highly suggest taking some of those resources they have at the hospital and using them so that you're not completely stressing yourself out and bombarding and burdening yourself. One of the biggest things before we were able to be discharged from the NICU is Truman had such a hard time gaining weight. That was one of the last things that they usually have to do, is to gain a specific amount of weight in so many days. They had messed up his weight at some point and then figured out that it was messed up, and so they were like, looks like you can bring him home today. And we're like, wait, what? Like, this whole time we're waiting and fighting to get our kid home, but yet so excited yet so scared all at the same time. Are you sure that we can bring him home? Like, is everything going to be okay? We're so used to him being attached to these wires and like being able to see his oxygen rate at all time and being able to see his heart rate all at one time, and 24/7 being able to see all that and knowing like they were going to take all of that off and we were going to be able to take our boy home. It was very exciting, but also very scary. And I remember looking back on our video that we took of him coming home, and we had him in our loft, and you said, where do I put him? Because we literally had nothing to like set him in.
We didn't know he was coming home, so we're just like,
we didn't have a jumper or bouncer or anything. I think it's important to note that when you come home and you bring your preemie home, your family and other people who have never been through this experience before are really not going to understand fully what you've been through. And understandably so. They didn't walk through that experience day in and day out with you and your baby. But you have to do what's best for your family. You have to do what's best for your kid. But it's also so vitally important for you to connect with others who have gone through this journey with you, because they're the ones who are really going to understand. Your family's not going to fully understand everything that you've been through. Take the information that you get from your doctors, take it all in, but use wisdom and use discernment and knowing what's best for your family and to not harm yourself mentally.
So our son is now almost 6 years old. He's just like any other kid. He's rambunctious. He loves to play. He loves to run. He is so full of joy, extremely joyful. I think he's the class clown at school because everyone likes him and he's always making people laugh.
Truman, hey Truman.
Yeah, every kid, we're picking him up or leaving. Kids are like yelling at him saying, bye Truman or hi Truman. Like, it's really, really great. And he really is thriving. Like, there's things that took longer than I think a full-term baby would have been. But it's like his developmental journey, like you can expect that developmental journey to be different and unique. Because I think mentally he was a lot further along at times than he was physically, than his body was. But now being almost 6, like everything's caught up, everything has come together, and he's like any other, near 6-year-old boy.
He's our miracle boy, and we definitely make sure that he knows that. He knows how much he's loved, and he knows that God has a purpose for his life, and we're so thankful that that he's our miracle boy and that he's living and thriving, and we can't wait to see the purpose and the anointings that God has put upon his life.